Oh,
Okay.
I
Well,
think,
it's for kids, right?
no,
Health
no, I
equity
think that's, yes, it is. It's Kathy from the Health Equity Zone.
oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
From where?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Say that again, guys.
Health Equity Zone.
Okay. Does she belong in the panelists?
No.
Not yet.
Okay. Elaine Mansell belong in the panelists?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And I have an 822-9200, but I know Rainey Kutu belongs in the panelists. Correct? Rainey belonging in the panelists, David?
Yes.
Okay.
The
All right,
822 number's town hall, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if that's going to be, that could be Don Willett from his office. I'm not sure.
The 9200 is me, it's Elaine.
Oh, okay, so you're using the
Okay.
phone. Okay, all right. I think, yeah, but I have another 9200, I think. All right, Dave, you're good to go.
Joe, I'm just a spectator.
Who said that?
Al.
No.
Okay.
All righty. Meeting call to order. Today is Tuesday, June 16th. It is now 6:06 p.m. Town Council meeting virtual Zoom for our third public hearing.
Councilman Licciardi,
Here.
Councilman Messier,
Here.
Councilwoman Williamson,
Here.
Council Vice President D'Amico,
Yeah.
Council President Goslin.
Here.
We have a quorum. Public hearing on proposed FY21, July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 annual town budget. All departments. You just want to circle.
And this is a very perilous time. During the White House meeting Monday, the president announced a new $2 million Department of Justice grant to fight senior fraud, which has been increasing during the pandemic. Andy pointed to 81.
We don't, who's listening to Donald Trump?
Somebody's got a TV or radio on.
Oh,
Was that you, Marianne?
no. Sitting here in the
Oh,
quiet.
All right. Ernie, you want to stop?
Nursing homes are still a major health concern. The path for seniors and families.
As soon as you turn to Ernie.
That those nursing homes are doing.
We're all moving now.
Ernie, can you hear us?
1 minute.
Reporting in Washington, I'm Morgan Wright.
What's going on?
Elaine, you want to go over and throw something at him?
Can you hear them?
Figure out why it's starting. Can you hear us, Ernie?
Ernie's
I
unmuted
can hear
now.
you.
We can hear him talking, but I don't think he can hear us.
That's all I got, so it can't be it. Okay, that's good.
Can you hear us now, Ernie?
Okay.
All right, Ernie, you want to give us, I know you've had some updates and some emails to the council as far as updates on the budget, and the council can discuss it from there.
Yes, thank you, and sorry for the interruption. I don't know what happened, but we are good to go now. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council, and those invited guests who are participating tonight, and those members of the public. And when we prepared the FY21 budget, the preparation really started the year before when the town was preparing our budget.
Hey, I don't know where that was coming from. I muted everybody and I realized that.
Hey.
Ernie's muted again.
Ernie, you're muted again.
Somebody hit mute all, and that's what happened.
He's not muted.
Can you hear us now, Ernie?
Yes, thank you. I'll go right into the, some comments. Again, when we prepared the budget for FY21, we were cognizant of the fact that there would be some increases coming into the budget that hadn't been in before. So we budgeted the healthcare premiums to what our healthcare advisor told us the premium, advised us the premium should be. And I believe that was the first time in a long time that the town did that. So last year we bit the bullet on healthcare, expecting that the premium that we would be paying in FY21 would be much less, so that we could absorb increases into our budget. And that did happen. So on that part of the plan was good until the coronavirus pandemic, which occurred, which created a generational crisis in healthcare and economic crisis. When we met with the council on May 12th, our budget, was reduced by about $286,000. But during our discussions, it was realized that the budget would have to be reduced, and the goal was set for around a 2% increase. So we came back with a plan that would bring our tax rate increase actually down under a little bit under 2%. So we made some proposed reductions to the council. About 700,000 would come from the town and about 154 from the school department. And as we were looking at that, there were two recommendations that I really did not want to make. One was for the school, because they have been such an excellent partner for the last 4 years, requesting level appropriations, and also the necessity to look at our fund balance, because one of its intended uses is for emergency situations, and clearly that's where we are today. So with that, so as we went through the process, we also had to decrease some of our revenues that were impacted by the coronavirus, as far as the meals tax, hotel tax. So we had to reduce those amounts by about $215,000 to come up with this plan. And I would say that this is the budgets that will be adopted. Certainly are balanced and will be adopted, but they all will be revised, I'm sure, at least one time before we have official budgets to work off of. The General Assembly is meeting this week to revise the FY20 budget and pass some local legislation. And one of those is for cities and towns that have budget referendums, like the town of West Warwick. My understanding is that the General Assembly will defer on making any final decisions on the FY21 budget until it's known whether or not another federal stimulus package will be coming into cities and towns. And if it is, how much, and are there any restrictions? So the General Assembly is working on a range of budget proposals based upon various scenarios. Like everyone else, we have a lot of conference calls on this issue, and the league had a conference call with Senator Reed, and he indicated the soonest that a stimulus package would be adopted would be sometime in July, and it probably would not be what the House adopted. It would be something less. So again, where we are today is we had a goal to meet. We met the goal. It certainly was not how we wanted to, but we did meet the goal of a tax rate increase under 2% and a levy increase lower than that. So as far as the lay of the land, that's sort of where we are today. And I would be happy to answer any questions on what I provided, or certainly the council can start their deliberative process.
we have any questions for Ernie?
I'm not sure what the process is going to be, David, how you anticipate doing this. I will tell you that, first of all, Ernie and Kristen have put a lot of work and effort into this, and I appreciate that. And the work that Ernie has done over the last couple of years has clearly put us in a position where we are fortunate enough to have some decisions. There are some communities that just don't have any options. That being said, I will actually put on the table right now that I am not in favor of cutting the school budget. I believe that they have been a tremendous partner. I believe that the relationship is very important. We've worked long and hard to build that relationship, and I would not be in favor of reducing the $800,000 request that they have made.
And I'm also of the same vein. I don't want to do anything that's going to further hurt the school department. Frankly, if there were an increase and, you know, a portion of that was because of the schools, I think people would actually support that type of increase, knowing how great our schools are. And given the current situation, if we can, you know, that I won't vote for any sort of.
You got cut off at the end there, John. I think you said you wouldn't vote for anything. The fact is that the school, and I actually attended the school committee meeting via Zoom, where they actually made some very painful cuts. They made a $1.9 million in cuts. They eliminated four vacant positions that they decided that they weren't going to fill, and they eliminated. They actually laid off, I believe, 7 people. And to ask them or to suggest that we not fund, when they've not asked for any increases over the last several years, that we not fund them at their request, I just think is very short-sighted, and I would not support it.
Yeah, and I'd like to agree with both John and Mary Beth. I think that who knows what state the school is going to be in next year, and the least we can do is give them the small amount that they want. I mean, it's a big amount, and nobody wants to raise taxes, but the school is, to take it away from the school at this point, I don't think is right.
The fact of the matter is that we are one community. It's not the schools in the town. We're one district. We are a very proud community, and we've done a lot of work to make sure that that's a very strong relationship. It's a very important relationship, and quite frankly, the schools have been a star in the state compared to maybe what we've done on the municipal side. So they've done some tremendous things. And again, I just, I could not support not giving them the $800,000 that they're asking for.
And then, I mean, this is my, I don't know what year, this is my 4th or 5th budget, and this is the first time they've asked for an increase since I've been here, so.
Councilman Licciardi, I know you're on cell phone. Do you have any comment? Ernie, out of that reduction for what were you looking to reduce? Was it 154,000?
Yeah, that's correct.
And I don't think the council's supporting that. So I would actually ask that you, and I will say what all 3 council members said is very true. Being the longest council member here, I remember some rough days back in 2010, 11, and 12 with the previous superintendent, and it always got contentious. And with Karen and her group, it's always been very professional. They've been a great partner over the last, I think, 7 or 8 years now. Karen, you've been in place as superintendent, and I think that relationship has been rebuilt with the town and the school, and also our townspeople, our constituents. You know, it has a totally different mentality. The school committee works very hard to make sure that they're working with the parents, and just watching what went on this year in the school department and how much was extra work for our department heads in the school side and the teachers and the students all to work together. And, you know, I hate to, you know, break that relationship, and would continue to love working with the school department as we always do. And I agree with the other 3 council members. You know, even though it doesn't sound like much, 154,000, that, I think there's other places we can get it at this point, considering 5 years of every tax increase that the town has had. We have taken it on the municipal side, and the school side hasn't received anything from us in the past few years. So, I think we have to find a way to either find that 154,000 elsewhere, or, and I know Councilwoman Williamson has come up with a couple ideas, and has shared that with you, and we might have to look at that.
Again, it would be very short-sighted on our part to fracture a relationship at all. That it's a very important relationship, and we are indeed one community, and we should stand as one community. And quite honestly, they're going to have a tough road with the governor coming out and saying that people are going back to school, and whether that's really or that's the goal, so she says. I imagine that they're going to need to come up with more money to actually go back to school in that fashion. So it's just, it's not somewhere I'm willing to go.
I agree with that. I mean, I didn't get a chance to see the school committee meeting. I apologize, but my understanding is almost $2 million was cut. That is significant. I mean, I know as an educator, the cost, especially for the students, when teachers are cut, programs are cut, classes are cut. I don't want to have any further part in that process as far as further cuts.
Yeah, I think a lot of us that aren't teachers realize this year it's not as easy to be a teacher as some of us maybe thought it was.
So with the consensus of the council, I feel that 154,000 has to be either removed from somewhere else or added back into the budget. Kristen, I know you're on. Do you have any idea what 154,000 added back in would do for the overall rate?
Hold on 1 second. I'll tell you in 2 seconds. 54. Let's try 2%. 23.2. It's gonna 2.0. Let's try that. 30.07, 34.80, 32.52, 29.97, 45.84. Would bring it up to, if you accepted everything else that we presented, the tax rate increase would be 2.2%. You're muted.
You're muted, Dave. Dave, you're muted.
I think Councilman Lanchardi wants to say a word. I got to unmute him. I got to try to find him on here.
Can we go through all of these as well? Just, get a consensus, and then we can just take one vote.
Yep, let me just unmute Councilman Lanchardi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
I like to weigh in on this. I think when they requested $800,000, it's a lot of money, and it's an easy cut to peel off of. When you think about it, in 5 years, 800 divided by 5 is about 160,000 or so. And I think that's a small number to come at us with. And they have an unknown too. And believe me, I've been weighing in on this, myself, thinking, all right, if we need to take some money, that's the easiest part to go to. But I really, it's very difficult to make this cut. However, I think going forward, if hopefully it doesn't, but if the budget does get voted down, we may have to go here. So I'm hoping that they have a plan B in place. But I'm not for cutting anything with the school right now.
Thank you, Jay. Jay, I'm gonna keep you unmuted and you can mute and unmute yourself on your phone.
Thanks.
Are we gonna go through the list of items? Is that the next course of action?
So right now, we're looking at the 154,000 as re-entered.
Yeah, that's all set.
And as long as we're going to have that conversation, one of the things that was not addressed in the recommendations that was sent, and there was an update given today, revolves around funding the pension at more than 100% of the annual required contribution. I believe the budget does indeed fund it at 100.5% for the 21 budget. That I believe Ernie and Kristen, you told us that amounts to about $167,000. And in any year that we have the money to do just that, I would say absolutely, but that is not where the position we're in this year. And that's a very easy way to at least get us back on keel. So if we put the 154 back in and we remove that 167, we're actually ahead of the game, and that'll bring us back down below 2%. So I would not be in favor of funding the pension. Again, any given year, and maybe at the end of the year, we will be surprised and we'll have money that we will be able to do something with at the end of the 21, in June of 21. But at this point, I would not put it in the budget. I would leave it at 100% of the annual required contribution. So I would remove that 167 from the budget as well. So those two items would be adding back 154 for the school and taking out 167 for the pension.
And I would agree with that as well. I don't know what the rest of the consensus is, but
What I'll do is I'll edit the number.
I don't know, John, if
can we add
John?
Can we add $1,000 in the budget to get John a new laptop?
Or up his speeds.
Can't hear him.
I don't know. I apologize for the connection. What I'm trying to say is, I agree. Can you hear me? No?
Yes, now we can.
Bring your laptop closer to your router.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what I'll do. I'll bring it closer. So what I wanted to say is I agree with Councilwoman Williamson and Councilman Messier. I think given our current situation,
Councilman Licciardi, I think you tried to speak. Just want to.
No, I didn't, but yes,
Okay.
I agree. I agree as well. I think to give any more than we have to at this point, it has nothing to do with the schools. We are not in a position to do that.
I agree. It's not it has nothing to do with the schools, Jason. I agree with that, but it is a way to as we go through to balance the budget, it's something that we should address. And in a year when we can afford it, wonderful, but that would not be this year. And it come June of 21, if we can, that's another story that we can talk about.
So I took the school off and added the pension. I have a new total number of expenditures that once we go through and make sure everyone agrees on everything else, we can just take a vote on that total number.
All right. So, Kristen, you want to start going through that list?
We can start off with revenues. So the state sent out revised projections for meals and hotel tax, and they reduced them significantly. So they're projecting that we're going to lose about $241,906 in revenue from meals and hotel. So I'm supposed to use their projected numbers. So we'll have to reduce our revenue by that amount. And that was from the state.
And do we feel, I mean, and I understand we need to use the state. Do you have a gut feel for that, Kristen, as to?
Well, you know, West Warwick doesn't have a lot of, West Warwick has a lot of takeout. So I haven't seen a big dip. I was waiting for June to hit. I think June would give me a better idea of where we're at right now. June hasn't hit yet, so I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen a huge decline. However, you know, what if a second wave comes? Who knows?
Right.
It's very unpredictable at this point, and I think it's prudent to go with what the state is recommending at this point.
Okay. But it may be fairly conservative, but I would agree that would be we have to anyway.
Yeah.
I would go with what the state says. Yes. Okay.
So that is the revenue section of the spreadsheet I sent. The first in expenditures, the first line is medical and dental. We got the final rates from Gallagher for Blue Cross and Delta Dental, and it netted to a decrease of $241,124 in overall medical and dental expenses. And that's across the departments. So I'm recommending that we reduce that. They're basically, the working rates came in for budget purposes with a 0% increase, which was good news. Very good.
Yes.
Anyone have any questions on that?
Nope.
Workers' comp and property liability insurance. After 3 emails to the trust, I finally got them to confirm that our property and liability was not going up as much as I had projected. So we can shave off between workers' comp and property liability another $84,700. Once I could, because I got confirmation of the final rates on that.
83 or 84? 83.7.
79,534, 4270. Yeah, 83,804.
Okay.
General government, Ernie recommended shaving off 10,000 off of consulting.
Ernie, is that, what consulting is that you think that you might not need?
Well, we budgeted initially $50,000. Part of that could be for additional work that GRS may need to do. We're not sure. During contract negotiations, sometimes professional services are necessary in specific areas. So it was a general idea of consulting services that may be necessary in the upcoming year, but there is nothing that was specifically planned on that would be a problem. So between the reductions, we should be fine.
The next thing, capital, and Ernie sent you a kind of a analysis on our capital reserve funds. And so we recommended taking out funding capital from the general fund for this fiscal year and using our capital reserve for the various projects and proposed needs that the police, fire, and for our IT needs, we can take out of our capital reserve fund. That was a total of $194,125. Any questions on that?
I don't have anyone from the council.
No, and Ernie, but you're comfortable with doing it in that fashion, that your proposal winds up with the unassigned funds being somewhere from under $10,000 at the end of the day? You're comfortable with that?
Yes, because what I tried to do is give an estimate of what the major issues are that we're aware of today that would need to be funded, given the issues that we have today. So, it is a perfect use for for the capital expenses and some of the operational expenses that are capital related, because it is a one-time revenue source. So there is no built-in deficit going forward. So it's a one-time expense for these items, and the entire list would address some of the issues we have concern about. So I think that would be fine. And some of the funds that would be allocated in public works, maybe estimates. So if they're a little bit lower, then that may be the result may be a little bit higher. Or conversely, if public works projects are a little bit more, then we could use the 10,000. But again, I think that's a very appropriate use of the funds. As you said, given where we are today, given the needs we have, I think it works very well.
Thank you.
Any
The
other
next-
comment?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Kristen.
Okay. The next line, legal insurance claims under 30,000. We just really haven't been spending it. When I look at the 3-year actual, I should figure I'd shave about another 5,000 off of that.
Can I go back to the IT improvements?
Sure.
Did you include, so you were including that? Because
Yep.
on the updated, okay, yep, fine, thank you.
So the legal, we haven't really been spending that over the last 3 years, so I recommend shaving another 5,000 off of that.
Okay.
In looking at the fire budget, in looking at training, in looking at where they are to date for this year, the budget being 35,000 and it's not spent yet, we recommended the initial increase, the additional increase of 33,103 be taken away and have it level funded to 35,000 again for this year, and bring down the turnout gear, which we could also fund it, we could prioritize that in capital needs if turnout gear is needed. And I did explain that to Chief Barone.
And Chief Barone, the training part that, Kristen, you talked to Chief Barone about that as well?
Yes, I emailed all of the directors on all of these changes this week, and Chief Barone did not have any comments. I'm sure he's not happy, but he did not get upset or fight it or dispute it. Jumping down to DPW, in looking at overtime, we decided to shave another 20,000 off of that. Overtime costs can be absorbed by salary savings due to vacant positions. And then the associated payroll taxes with that. Major needs and looking, what we spent this year. And again, overall, the DPW budget is coming in very, very much under budget. I want to say it's about 600,000 or 700,000 under budget. And if these positions don't get filled right away in July, which they won't, we're going to have significant savings again. So if we do happen to have a bad winter, there'll be other areas in that budget that we can utilize to cover those expenses.
I were on DPW in those positions in the budget. I know you just said that they won't be filled by July. Is there a specific reason why? Because this is going to start getting into the busy season per se, is, the bike path and paving and sidewalk repair, and before you know it, winter will be here.
Well, we have a temporary HR person who works 3 days a week, 5 hours a day, and she's here to help, but she's not in any way, shape, form. I mean, I'm sure they'll get them posted. I'll defer to Ernie on this.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yes, we have, I believe at the present time, 6 laborers positions vacant in public works. And again, that has created a problem for us. And there's a variety of reasons for that. But we have now revised our job descriptions that were quite antiquated. And we will be posting internally for these positions. And what we're going to do now is basically we will have a laborer for the Department of Public Works, laborers, and then we will have laborers for the Recreation Department. And the responsibilities for primary for Public Works employees will be Public Works, secondary will be Recreation, and vice versa. So we do intend to post those internally to see what what interest there is internally, and then advertise on the outside to see if we can receive good qualified applicants. you know, it was funny because before the COVID-19, it would be hard to get applicants because of the booming economy. And now with the economy not booming and what's happening, you know, we're hopeful that we can get some very, very good applicants because we changed entry-level requirements so that a CDL is not required, but it must be received in 6 months. So that should help with recruitments. So again, we realize we need to have these positions. This is our busiest time, and you know, so those will be advertised and posted internally. They will be advertised because, quite frankly, we cannot have specific crews do specific projects, such as what we've been doing is picking up yard waste. We can't do that regularly. We can't really do a lot of things regularly because, you know, we have not only we have the vacancies, but then we have people that are unavailable for work for different reasons. So, yeah, this will be right.
I was just going to say, when do you think you might be able to get those posted, Ernie?
I am hopeful. I would believe that they will be in final draft form tomorrow, and then we will send those to our union president for review and commentary, you know, as to, you know, the job descriptions, because it's, you know, our requirement and obligation is to have a review of those by the union to solicit their comments and take those comments into consideration until they are, and then after that, then finalize the job descriptions. And depending upon how long that takes, I mean, conceivably they could be posted Friday. And we have a 5-day posting period.
So going forward, if we could have these posted internally, say Monday, and in most cases, with the shortage that we have, I don't see anybody applying, maybe 1 or 2 internally, if that. But can we have the job posting to go out to the paper or wherever else we advertise outside ready to go?
Yes.
And can we interview as applicants come in? So if there's a 2-week, basically, maybe I'm wrong with this, but if it's a 2-week process where people from the outside come in, you know, can we do we have to wait the 2 weeks and then set up the interviews and then screen everybody? Then you're looking at August by the time anything gets done. Can we put this on the forefront to interview? And even if the HR person isn't in the, I mean, I don't know if she has to be or not. I mean, to me, and personally, I think as long as we have our DPW director there and maybe the assistant director there to go over the job scope, you know, and they can read at that point what benefits would be and everything, because I think that would really speed up the process. Because we're looking for people now, you know, because I'm just one of 5 council members, but DPW, you know, they're out in the forefront, and when things aren't done, like potholes and yard waste and everything, that kind of defines the town, and that really puts a lot of, you know, we'll give Don hell for it because that's what's visible, that's what people see. If we can speed up this process, even by 2 or 3 weeks, you know, to not just put a body in there, but a really good applicant, it's somebody that we don't want to lose at this point.
Well,
is there any?
To answer your question, yes. As applicants come in, you know, they can be screened as they come in. And if a qualified applicant is there, certainly an interview can be conducted while others are coming in. So to answer your question, yes, that can be done. So it doesn't have to wait until the official closing period.
Okay.
To do that. And yes, I would have the person in our HR department be on the interview process. You have someone who's got 32 years in HR experience, and definitely that.
Ernie, I'm not debating that. I'm just saying that if she's only working, like Kristen said, 3 days a week, 5 hours a day, then I know her schedule is probably busted out. And if, not saying it's not a priority for her, but if she has 1,000 things on her plate already, you know, and we have 2 people down there that they'd be working 40 hours a week and have more availability to interview, I just don't want that to be a stopgap, you know?
It won't.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Any other questions on that? All right, Kristen.
Next one in DPW was fleet maintenance. As I look at it right now, as of today, it's running about $60,000 under budget. So I thought it was safe based on the average to shave another 10,000 off of that. And construction and drainage is running about, looks like some money's been spent, about 20,000 under budget. But again, because this whole department has been running so far under budget, we thought it was safe based on the average of the last 3 years to shave $25,000 off of that.
I guess the only thing I would question on that is that my understanding is that drainage in particular was going to be a priority. We were hoping to have a work group, if you will, to address drainage. So I don't disagree, and I think basing it on last 3 years, but my understanding, Ernie, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're looking to beef that up, and we have a number. I know I myself in Ward 1 have a number of drainage issues.
Right.
So do I.
Yes, the overall goal and objective is to have 2 work crews, one devoted for the construction type repairs, drainage, sidewalks, and another crew that will do other work, with, pothole repairs. Some do the, like the cemeteries, keep the bike path going. So they have two groups working separately, but having projects to, especially the construction, to resolve a lot of these issues that seem never to get resolved. But based upon what is happening today, it will take some time to get that beefed up. And in the capital allocation, there was an amount for public works, for some equipment, for, I think, the salt shed, and there probably will be some remainder, from that amount that could be used for, construction items if necessary. So I think by the time we fully get staffed to what we want to have happen, that amount of money will not be a problem. So if this budget is adopted and the state does receive federal stimulus, so there are no further significant reductions, we can start on that process. And I think that ultimately that will benefit the town. This year is almost like, it's very difficult because of the constrictions and restrictions that we've had, but the ultimate goal and plan is sound. And I believe that we would have enough this year if that plan is put into effect.
Okay.
And, and again, I am optimistic that, again, if there are no further reductions from the state, although they really can't do much to us now except take things away, because our state aid is virtually very limited direct money. So, but anyway, I think we can cover it, and with some capital funds that would not be allocated.
Any other questions on that one? Thank you, Kristen.
The next is parks, supplies, and expenses. As of today, June 16th, they're running about 20,000 under budget. So we thought it was safe based on the actuals of the last 3 years and where they are as of today to shave 10,000 off of that.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is going to be a work in progress because we've restructured the recreation department. Previously there were 2 employees of Public Works that went over seasonally. And to try to put more emphasis into maintaining our properties, our fields, we have now a laboring force of 3 full-time people. One is there now, and I think one retired, but again, we have 1 full-time now, so that's when the posting will go up in 2 ways. So for DPW laborers and recreation laborers. So this is a very it's a first year, and with the issues about staffing and what can be done with certain restrictions we have, placed upon us, it'll be a sort of a learning year. But again, I think that would be sufficient for this year, and then we'll see going forward. And again, going forward, this is part of the reorganization to, improve how we operate and deliver our services.
Any questions on that?
Kristen?
Mm-hmm.
Question about your assumptions in the budget. Have they changed about tax collections?
Tax collections have slowed down quite a bit, and it is making me concerned. The number that I used a couple of weeks ago when I did this for the monthly report that's on the next meeting, we're about $85,000 away from that number. And then we have 2 months, July and August. So we'll probably hit the assumption that I have in there for tonight's meeting. And we'll probably go over that, but I'm watching it very carefully.
So that's for the 20 budget, but for the 21 budget, did you make any adjustments as to what your collection rate was?
No, because I was inclined to, before COVID, to raise our collection rate, because the average collection rate was like 97.2 over the last 3 years. Okay. So before COVID, I would have absolutely raised it, but with COVID, I would like to hold steady where we're at.
And tell me what it is again. I'm sorry, remind me.
96.8.
96.8. Yep.
Just to mention, a lot of communities budget a significantly higher rate, like 99 and even over 99%. And those
crazy.
communities are the ones that are really struggling, because that number now is going to be unattainable, or maybe unattainable because it's so high. And the reality is, with the amount of unemployment that's out there, due to the businesses closing, the number we have is conservative, but at this point, I think that's very sound.
I absolutely agree that staying with a more conservative number and not increasing it is the right answer.
So
I'm just curious, Kristen, are we expecting any revenue from the Civic Center towards the budget?
Towards 21 or 20?
Towards this, towards the budget, the upcoming budget we're talking about.
Fiscal year 21?
Correct.
No.
I'm just curious as to why not. I mean, has anybody done any investigating for a chart similar that we use with the sewer department? I mean, I brought that up a few times.
Right, and it can be a discussion maybe for next year's budget, but again, I feel the sewer treatment facility plant and the civic center are two completely different entities. The amount of time that we put into sewer and the amount of time we put into civic center is vastly different. I don't even know, and we charge them for the wind turbines, $170,000 a year towards the debt service. I don't think that their budget could handle anything. They're an enterprise fund. They're a service that the town is providing to the community. And I just don't think that they could absorb any more charges. And they're so minimal. It's not, I don't feel it's.
Well, I understand it's minimal, but I mean, we're asking every department, every other department, public works, police, fire, planning, tax assessor, to give up 1,000 here or 10,000 here for trainings and consultation and supplies. And they are a department in the town. And although they don't have the same revenue, obviously, as a sewer department, it's the same premise. The same people, HR and yourself and the deputy clerk and the town manager, just to name a few, contribute to the sewer department. And they also contribute on a much smaller scale to the civic center. And I don't think that's fair. I mean, if we're looking, we're looking for revenue. They have to make the revenue. It's that simple. That's my feeling on it.
Again, and I would say that let's look at the situation we have today. All right, for all intents and purposes, the Civic Center closed in March. No revenue coming in, expenses going out because they were required to go out. And there is a baseline for what it costs to keep the doors open. So going back into a facility like the Civic Center, again, we are bound by the regulations and the guidance of the state like everyone else. 15 people max, you can't interact. So at this point, we are restricted in raising revenue in the Civic Center. Now we are raising revenue because once the guidance came out, Lori Swanson took the guidance, made a reopening plan, very good, and started to book ice. So they are making money now and for this fiscal year. And they are doing some limited rentals of the field house. But again, there are certain restrictions. So the revenues coming in are not going to be like they were. I don't know when a large event can come into the Civic Center with guidance that we're going to have about social distancing, sanitation, all these issues. So the revenue is going to be down because we just cannot function the way we have. So this year is going to be one where, okay, we know we're going to get a good amount of revenue for ice. That's a good thing. There's restrictions there that the leagues have to abide by, or the groups, because you can't have leagues right now, I don't think. But, so anyway, so this is a whole new entity. It's not going to be a fair year to judge how it operates because there are these restrictions from the outside placed on the Civic Center. But again, our expenses are going to be different. Expenses are going to be less. And overall, the best expectation it can be is to break even and receive be in the black a bit. Now, in general, I never would have, if it were me, I never would have said the Civic Center is going to make money. They don't make money. When you look at civic centers and you put in the benefits that normally aren't seen, they are very difficult to make money. They are, in essence, a community good, a community service, a betterment for the community and residents. So the goal should be is to break even and make a little bit, but it's not going to make a tremendous amount. Now we're going into a new model. So we will see if our expenses are reduced and have the same level of service, whatever the service that we are providing is. So again, this is a different year for the Civic Center for a number of reasons. But the restrictions that we have hopefully will be lessened in phase 3, and where there may be, we play games. We don't know any of this yet. So we are adjusting as we are going. So it clearly is not a situation where, a contribution can be made from the Civic Center to the town. Now, if through this whole process and the changes that are going on, if it can make money at the end of the year, yeah, maybe a contribution can come back to the town because they owe the town a lot of money for the improvements that were put in, which is unforeseen when they can pay it back. So to answer your question, at this point, if we can break even, that is the goal. If we can make money, that's great, or not lose much money. And it has to be looked at as an asset to the community and a use by the community. So again, the long-winded answer is we're not in a position to do that. As we navigate through this situation, we find ourselves in with restrictions. So we will do our best to generate as much money as we can, but some of those big tick items in the Civic Center you're not going to see. Circuses, not that we want them, but other areas where a lot of people will gather, congregate, unless these restrictions are lightened up or lessened.
So Ernie, and I just want to comment on that. I know Councilwoman Williamson and myself, we sat on a negotiating team, and when we went into that negotiations, I'm not even sure we were on the same page. And there was a lot of work from this council Lori stood up before us numerous times and explained what the issues are, especially with contract, overtime, and many different things. And in the end, the council and the union negotiated a contract that this department is now non-union. It's now going to be managed differently. And we also can use part-timers before having to go through the contract rules and have to offer overtime to the full-timers first. I personally think we need to give it a year or two to see where we stand. Unfortunately, the beginning of this year, I think I'd say 1 year, but beginning how this year is starting off and the restrictions that we're going to have to at least October and hopefully not a second resurgence, that we give the people who are running the Civic Center an opportunity to make it work. Unfortunately, we tried it, privatizing it. We've tried bringing it back into the union. We brought it back to the town. And I get frustrated because I know I'm constantly keeping tabs with different people in this town and knowing some people are coming to work 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. on their days off, popping in, making sure everything's great, and trying to scalp it now for every little dollar it makes, I think is the wrong thing to do. I think if we wait a year or two and see what it actually does, then we can look at it. I mean, you got to also remember, we partner with the school on the Civic Center and the ice rink. They pay us for ice. Well, if they can't play hockey, that's a $50,000 expense that we're not going to, the Civic Center is not going to get revenue, but the school possibly could save it. The Civic Center, they use it for gym. They use it on rainy days. We're in partnership. So you got to look at the big picture. We might not be making $1 million there, but the entire community, I don't know how, there's tons of families when that place is thriving in the winter, basketball leagues and whatever, West Warwick families constantly use that. At one time, there was council members on this council, not this specific council, but on previous councils that talked about mothballing that place. And I think that's the biggest mistake this community can make, but we should at least be at zero and not costing the town any money. But unfortunately, every time we start getting somewhere, we end up, something happens. And, you know, even in 2010, the floods of 2010, when people say, oh, that's no effect on the town, that was a shelter for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And that was when the town had it privatized. You know, there are definitely some things that need to change up there. And I think July 1, we'll see how it goes. And, you know, right now, we're bound to have employees that are working here right now when it was closed. I mean, when you're privatized or when you're non-union and you want to send those people home, you can do that and let them collect unemployment. That didn't happen this time. And so we had people working up there, two individuals, and unfortunately, we were paying them full-time hours. So to drill it now on the Civic Center, like I said, I got to give it a year or two before I can approve what you're saying.
I agree. I think we need to give it time.
I'm just going to leave it at this. I just disagree with it. You know, I'm looking for the same justification chart that we had with the sewer department, and a little bit different, because I know with the sewer department, they're actually paying for a position that we cut out. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not going to elaborate anymore. It's 7 o'clock, so I just don't agree.
Thank you. Anything else on the budget?
Yeah, I have something, and I had sent this to the council. I'm not going to read the whole email because it was kind of a novel, but I'm going to try to summarize it. And it's actually to add something to the budget, and it involves a mental health professional joining forces with the West Warwick Police Department. And I know there's been a lot of discussion over the past couple of weeks about different ways people can improve police departments across the country. And I can't speak to everything that's going on in the entire country, but I can talk to something that I think will benefit the town of West Warwick. I know for years, mental health there's been cuts in mental health across the board everywhere. So I'm pushing to add a mental health clinician to work hand in hand with the West Warwick Police Department beginning in fiscal year 2021. I think social work can't be done alone. I don't want to eliminate a position from the police department, so I want to clarify that this is about adding a position. We had a similar position for 3 years. We had a behavioral health navigator. They worked in cooperation with the Providence Center from 2017 and for about 3 years through the help of some various grants. And the work that was being done was not just knocking down doors, it was offering an outreach. And I don't think there's enough mental health outreach in the community. And I've reached out to a lot of different people over the past 2 weeks, including the chief, some police officers, our former behavioral health navigator, some different people in the community, as well as people in the Providence Center. And at the time when we had our previous behavioral health navigator, instead of just arresting people with mental health issues and drug addiction, this program aimed to address some of the core problems which led them down the path. And for me, the program can't be heralded enough. I know we had the liaison and our behavioral health navigator come before the council several times at that point. It helps, and it doesn't just help the people involved with the mental health, it also helps some of the families. Our previous clinician responded to calls with officers in real time to help de-escalate crisis situations. And as all of us watch the news nowadays, those things are invaluable. Provide crisis assessment and divert from arrests in some cases as well, instead of just putting people through the system. An estimated cost of this position, because I know that's what you're going to ask, is about $80,000. But a portion of that would be funded by the Providence Center. So it would cost the town of West Warwick about $60,000. I think it's time for us to be proactive as a community. The template is already here as a town because we've had this position in the past. And I think having a trained clinician or social worker in-house to help deal with mental illness, drug addiction, homelessness, just to name a few things that specifically affect this community every single day, could very much benefit our police officers and the individuals that our officers respond to and the community as a whole. And there is a cost, the $60,000, but I think, in my opinion, that's a small cost for the what it could do to help our police department. And I know I don't know if Chief Knott would like to chime in at all, because we've talked a lot in the past, especially the last week.
I am. Obviously, we had a great relationship for that period of time with our navigator from the Providence Center. I mean, obviously, we enjoyed a grant from the Department of Health and the CDC to fund that. And when it expired last August, that was a very significant loss for us in our response capabilities. Dealing with the opioid crisis and people in mental health crisis is a significant demand on police services. And obviously we want to be a responsible partner in helping those communities along the right path and avoid the criminal justice system for those folks that we can. So when the councilman reached out to me at the end of last week with this proposal, I reached out a little bit further, speaking to my counterpart in Warwick and back to the Providence Center, who we dealt with in the former position, and understanding we have great relationships with both the Providence Center and Thrive Behavioral Health, which is the focal in our local community here in nearby Kent County. That, as the councilman said, the cost is about $80,000. Providence Center is asking that we attempt to fund 3/4 of that, and they would figure out a way for the other quarter. So I believe the councilman is asking to put this in our actual budget, but that would not prohibit us or deter us from seeking grant funds to do this. That's always been a goal. We've been working on it. Unfortunately, we just haven't been successful in finding the fund source to date. But sadly, with the climate of the world, as the councilman mentioned, the last few weeks, and even the president's executive order today, there was a commitment from the federal government to make another push to have social workers and clinicians embedded and available to police departments. So the timing seems right to push this back into the forefront. I think it's good for us. It's good for our community. And I would be supportive of it.
Chief, how much would that be again for us?
The town's portion they're asking for us to at least commit to would be $60,000, which would be billed quarterly. But like I said, I think we could renew our efforts, and based on what the president said today, we could probably count on some other funding sources to offset that.
All right. I mean, there's a couple places we can get it from. I mean, not to be sarcastic, but just charge either the sewer department, or, I mean, we don't charge the civic center, so just put it all on the sewer department. Just call it a percentage. I am being sarcastic. And I don't agree with Jay Messier as much, but I think he hit the nail right on the head with this. And, you know, again, not to get personal, but having a child with special needs who will be an adult soon, you know, that scares the hell out of me, with him going out into the world and the world changing as it is, and him being put in a position, unbeknownst to him, and not having people able to deal with adults who have different disabilities and mental health issues. It's, you know, it's very scary. I think we should be able to find some of this money somewhere. And Chief, I think you're right. We hit it just at the right time.
So one question I would have.
I think that's the right time, and I think that given the situation that's taking place in society at this time, it's unfortunate that we can't have, you know, more than one person in this position.
In a perfect world, 100%, John, and I agree with that. And I said that in the email that I sent out. In a perfect world, every police department would have 2 or 3 of these. Even in a town the size of West Warwick, in a perfect world, that would 100% be very beneficial to our police department and our community as a whole.
Chief,
we have a template.
Elaborate on exactly what they do in the field and how they, you know, what their role is, you know, so we can envision it, the public can envision it.
I may have stepped on your initial question. You're asking what their role is or how it functioned in the past?
Just in terms of, you know, how do they actually work in the field? Do they have an office somewhere?
What happened with our past navigator? She had office space in our prosecution division nearby the detective who was assigned as her liaison. That grant primarily was focused on the opioid epidemic and opioid response. So she would, you know, if she was working and we had that call at any given time, she would get in a car with one of our people and respond to it. But more importantly, if she wasn't, because more often than not, you know, work weeks are only 40 hours and other training time, you're away from the town and away from your response capabilities. The more important job was the follow-up. So both she and the detective that was assigned would visit the people that were afflicted or had issues and offer them support in other paths. They would also follow up with the supporters of the people that were going through issues and offer them support. So when somebody was ready for the help, that they'd have the support and mechanisms in place to do it. And that's just focusing on the opioid thing. You know, I think the bigger response and help to us was dealing with the mental health crises that people go through. Obviously, the mental health institutions and the networks there were defunded many years ago. And obviously we saw the side effects from that, where a lot of people were, and probably rightfully so, were moved back out into the community-based living. I I firmly believe that's, better for, getting well, but when you're in a community environment, when things go wrong, you're exposed to other community needs. So the police get called. Having that capability and a person available to respond to those folks in crisis and help get them to their clinicians, or just be that extra level of support to get them the help they need, or help us get people into hospitals that typically, might get transported to an emergency room, not be displaying the signs a short time later and not getting the help they need, and just put right back out in the community. So it comes a vicious cycle. So although one person is not the end all be all, I mean, we have the plan in place to make it work to start. And if things develop and we're able to bring on more people or forge stronger partnerships with the Providence Center and Thrive Behavioral Health for better response to cover more hours, then obviously we do that.
Chief, when about 3 years ago, when we had the homeless encampment at Pulaski Street, and we ended up putting that committee together, I reported when I could about what I could, but that was there was only 12 people, and they were in the same location, but that took a lot of time and a lot of effort on the part of a small committee to get a positive ending result. And I mean, it's kind of why I'm for this position. I know what it takes, and I mean, and I dealt with it internally here, and that's not my forte. I'm a councilman. I'm not a mental health worker. Unfortunately, we had the committee who dealt with that stuff on a regular basis, but I really think it would take a burden off our officers and give them the training they need. So when they're out, they may have to have less reliance on the social worker at points. I'm all for it. I think we need to find it.
And I think this has been some stuff that's been discussed in the news the last couple of weeks, where people think that it can just be like a social worker out there. But I really think it's a collaborative effort, because there's lots of times where if you get a call with a mental health situation, it's not just that somebody's depressed or sad. There's usually some kind of a crisis situation in most cases. Maybe the homeless situation sometimes is or isn't. But in most cases, there is a crisis situation. So you need a law enforcement officer there. And on the other token, the law enforcement officers that are out there, this isn't to say they don't care, but many of them may not have the same training to be able to make those decisions. So that's why I think it's such an important collaboration between the two positions.
Councilman, hold on one second. I just want to point out something. I've actually had somebody with their hand in the attendees up for a very long time. They want to speak on behalf of the budget and also this matter, because actually this individual is actually an emergency mental health clinician. And I have her as Beth O. So if you could just state your name and address for the record so we know who you are. Beth? Can you hear it? Do you have a microphone on, Beth?
Now she is.
Can you hear you? You're unmuted. No. Beth, we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Beth Oliveri. I live at 8 Gerald Street in West Warwick. I'm in Jay's ward, actually, Ward 3. And I actually work for Thrive Behavioral Health. I'm an emergency clinician for Thrive Behavioral Health, and I do a lot of work in the community. And I just want to say, Chief Knott, that your officers are always very responsive to me when I call and ask for their assistance. I also know for a fact that our agency has a grant where we could provide you with a clinician that would probably cost you either nothing or a lot less than $60,000. And we work in the community. We know the community. We have clinicians on call now every day from 8 a.m. until 12 midnight. We've always been available to the town, to the police department, to anyone who's asked. And I know, Chief Knott, that my supervisor has actually spoken with you and offered you some of our services. I also worked with Heather, so I know what Heather did, and I know what the role is. Part of me says, I live in this town, I work in this town. I have a little bit of an issue using a community mental health center that is not in this town. Our mental health center covers West Warwick, Warwick, Coventry, East Greenwich, and West Greenwich. I don't understand why we want someone from Providence coming in and working with our folks when we already have people here who know that. Does that make any sense?
Oh, it does. And, the question is funding the position and then possibly going with what our police department is open to. And
well, we actually got a grant, a $2 million grant that allows us to expand our services in the community for things like the police department, CNAs, more community outreach, that kind of thing. So I think it's really worth the town's while to speak with a representative from the agency who does this and find out what it is we can offer you folks rather than paying money for something we may not have to pay money for to an agency that is not familiar with our community.
all right, we can, Chief, I mean, if you want to speak on that, and I know this is something new for all of us because Councilman Messier brought this before us. And again, he may not even know.
Well, I actually spoke with Councilman Messier about it. He kind of just sort of blew it over. I figured he already had an agenda, which in this case was the Providence Center.
Right. So basically, my recollection was that this started a few years back with then Colonel Richard Silva, and I suspect that the alliance with the Providence Center happened because they held the contract for emergency services at Kent Hospital.
At where? I'm sorry.
Did they have the emergency services contract at Kent Hospital back at the time? So I suspect that that's where it came from. I wasn't part of that conversation back when that was instituted. So I can't really speak to the foundation, but that's where it came from, and they applied on the grant together. I'm not opposed to any particular organization being made available that will best serve our needs. But to me, there's a significant difference between having the alliance with various clinical clinician groups that can offer social services to our citizens on a on-call basis that are available to respond when needed. To me, that's a little bit different. And I'm not saying, I think Thrive is just as capable of doing it as well. It's that our relationship in the past has been established with the Providence Center, so that's what I'm going to refer to it as, is that we actually have somebody that's embedded within the police department that has a desk here, that is vetted, that has access to our police database system, is issued a police radio. So it's a more direct contact relationship that we vetted, interviewed, and established. And like I said, that can be any organization. It doesn't truly matter to me on who it is or what organization, as long as we get to work out these logistics.
Well, I'm saying we can provide you with that. And actually, we asked for space in the police department to at least do evenings when Heather wasn't there. I don't know what happened with that, but it never came to fruition. But we can provide you with an in-house clinician if that's what you want.
I believe that's what the proposal is.
We could take
Is this something
Go ahead, Jay.
that we could speak about after? Do we have to decide tonight? Can we have more conversation with Mrs. Oliveri and the chief, and then come back to us, or have to be done tonight?
Well, I think at least tonight we should at least tonight, whether agree or not agree to the 60,000. I mean, the worst case scenario is that we don't need the 60,000. I think at least tonight we should decide on that. And worst case, we don't need to use all of it, especially as Chief Knott already spoke of. There could potentially be more grant funding going forward as well.
I have a question on that, Chief. If we agree to the 60,000 tonight as a dollar amount, and you decide to go with a different agency, or you get another, say you get a grant for 30,000, would that grant money be used prior to the money budgeted? Did that offset the 60 is what I'm trying to say.
That would be my intent. I mean, to me, the 60 was just the original proposal as the seed money to guarantee that we could pull this off. If we could not use any of it and return the money back to the general fund, that's fine with me. I prefer to get grants. It forces us into better community partnerships that way, and I think we're better.
I think my goal was to make sure that it ensures the police department to guarantee this position, and then go from there. So the worst case is, we pay for it out of the fund of the money we've already allocated. But best case, we get some kind of grants, or we're able to do it without costing anything from the taxpayers.
And I also have West Warwick Health Equity Zone with their hand up, so we're gonna let them speak also. Can you hear us?
Me?
Can hear you.
Okay, perfect. My name is Kathy Schultz. I'm the manager of the West Warwick Health Equity Zone. I just want to chime in that Heather's position, Heather was not only the behavioral health navigator for from the Providence Center with the police, she was also the co-chair of the overdose prevention work group. And part of our strategy is actually to find funding or sustainable funding for this position. This is, when I speak for the Health Equity Zone. And just to give a little bit of a background for that, my voice is basically what the community is telling me that they want. So we have many residents at the table. We have the police department, the fire department. We have Parent Support Network. We do have Thrive at the table. We also have the Providence Center, Anchor, and many, many other organizations, prevention coalitions. And this is a consensus that across the board is something that the Health Equity Zone, which is the community, has been asking for, is to figure out how we can get funding and get a behavioral health navigator implanted in the police department again. As far as Thrive, I don't know any of the conversations completely, but I do work with Dawn Allen, and I have reached out to Dawn on several occasions. And my understanding is that Thrive does offer the services. The problem is that if a call was made, it wasn't immediate. It wasn't with the police department. So I think that is why this is so important is to actually have sustainable funding, because when Heather's position was in place, Heather made a huge difference in the community. I have gone around the community. I've had the fire department, residents, everybody asking, where is Heather's position? Why isn't she there anymore? So, going forward, I think we just need this to be sustainable. And I think that what Jay is presenting today is very, very important. So that's my take on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do, David. I also agree that it's an important position at this point in time. I do believe that we will be able to get some grant funding, but we shouldn't rely on that. I'm sure there are a number of agencies and resources that we could tap. For $60,000, I think it's well worth it. Who it is, whether it's Providence Center or Thrive, or that's not what this discussion's about. It's about having a position. It's about having the position there and the funding for it. So.
And again, that's 100% accurate. Like I'll defer to the chief and the police department to make those decisions of who to choose. I used Providence Center as a template because that's who we used for those 3 years.
Absolutely.
And I reached out, as I said, the Chief Knott, the former police liaison, the former behavioral health navigator. I reached out to the Providence Center. And that's why I use that as my formula. If the council agrees to give the funding, I will defer that to the chief and the police department to make that decision of who they choose to use.
So I guess the question would then become, so if we were to add that $60,000 to the budget, What impact does that have? And I guess we haven't discussed what open positions there are at this point in time either. So that may not be filled. We may not have time to fill them this year, that kind of thing. So Kristen, what would $60,000 do to the numbers?
So I guess my question would be, did the original, that 60,000, is that position going to have healthcare?
That includes everything. It's all encompassing. The number we got was 80, but then we have to fund the 60. So that's everything. And Chief Knott can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I'm not sure on the proper terminology, but they would not be a town employee. They'd be an employee of the whatever agency is selected.
It'd be a
So
contract.
they bill us quarterly. If it
Contractor.
was $60,000, we give them 25% per quarter if that's the agreement. That was the past agreement. So
Yeah, they'd be a contractor for the town.
So Kristen, would you budget the full 80,000? And then if there is an offset, that would be a revenue coming in?
No, I think we would only need to budget the 60 because the Providence Center would only be billing us the 60.
So that's the organization that.
well, that was the organization that we had in the past. They also
If I could make a suggestion, you may want to take a look at this from the point of view of, is it going to be the council hiring professional services where you wouldn't have to go to a bid? Or is it going to be through the police department where you might want to go through a bid process to see either with a position paper or a white paper, you're going to get exactly what you bargained for. And then if there are multiple groups out there that offer the same type of services, you may be able to negotiate yourself a better deal, still utilizing subsequent grants that could come in to replace monies that the town is going to budget. So you might want to think, I mean, you can have the dollar amount set in your budget, but you might want to think a little more clearly on the procedure about how you want to go about selecting the entity that's going to provide the services.
Yeah, and again, that's why I said defer that to the chief, not to us. I just wanted to allocate the dollar amount, and then, then it's up to the police department to go from there and how they want to proceed.
The only other question I had is, and I heard in some of the discussion, so it's a police department resource, but it sounds like the fire department gets benefit as well. And that makes sense, especially if it was an opioid type thing previously.
Absolutely. The fire department definitely benefits from the Navigator.
Okay, thank you.
And in the past, the Navigator has done trainings for us. So they brought mental health training to the police department. I believe she did some things with the fire department too over the course of last year. So we would expect that would be part of our package deal that they're available for that.
Terrific. Yeah, I wholeheartedly support it.
The organization brings.
So Kristen, what would that $60,000 in additional expense do to the budget?
I think it's going to bring you to about 2.2% for a tax rate increase.
How can that be if it was adding the 154 brought us to 2.2?
Because then I took the 167 off and that brought us down to 1.92.
Yeah, but we're only adding 60. We're not adding
Actually, I just want to clarify, if we took out 154, added 167, so plus.
We had 13 ahead, right?
And that's $47,000, and that still brings 47 or 154 still brings us up 2.2.
Yeah,
so we were at, no, I have the calculation right in front of me. So we were at 1.96 with the 154,000 in and the 167 out. Once we swapped it, it went down to 1.92%.
Correct.
Now I just added 60,000 back to the budget. So now to cover that, we're at a 2.02%.
2.02. Okay.
You said 2.2. Okay. Yeah, you said 2.2. So
maybe
yeah, okay, that's right.
2.02. Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, all right.
I was going to say, I know I missed some classes, but math I was pretty decent at.
Not me.
So the second part of the question is, how many open positions do we have within the town in the budget, funded in the budget?
Across every department?
Sure.
So we have a vacant personnel director. That's one. We have a vacant civilian in the police department. I believe that is one of the dog officers. We have 2 vacant, well, we hired those people, so they're not vacant anymore. So scratch the dispatchers. As of the time that I was compiling the personnel supplement, I had 3 vacancies in the police department. I believe we've already hired one of them. I'm not sure on the 2, it would be new people. And there was 1 vacancy in the fire department. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 vacancies in DPW, 1 in the fleet for the mechanics, and 2 vacancies in parks.
So 6, 7, 9 for those 2 departments?
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 just for parks and DPW and mechanic, yes.
Okay. So is there any room to not fund one of those and fund this instead? And that's just a question I'm asking. I'm not suggesting that. I guess I'm throwing that out to the council.
Yeah.
No, you put us all on the spot.
Yep. Well, again, to get that back under 2%, is there an appetite for that? I guess that's the question I'm asking.
Well, when we advertise it, do they advertise 2.02 or they advertise 2.0?
2.02.
We don't round down. It's not. No.
Nope.
Again, just something I'm throwing out. And I guess I would ask Chief Knott, if you have a vacancy there, is that something that you think you will fill this year? Or would those funds be available?
I have 2 full-time police vacancies right now that I am not going to have bodies for until December at the earliest. They're not going to be, I'm not going to have, our recruitment was suspended due to COVID. So I am not going to get any bodies into the July 27th police academy. I don't even know how they're going to pull that off, but they're talking about having one in December, which I hope to have those bodies in. So I'm going to have some salary savings between July 1 and December. I mean, those positions are in patrol, so I'm replacing them on overtime, select days a week, depending on my minimum manpower levels. But I will have some savings.
Is there a way to not remove the position, but knowing, and what Chief Knott just said, that we won't have them for half the year, to at least know that the most we would pay is half that amount as far as setting the budget up?
It's an option.
I mean, because it doesn't remove anything, but knowing what he just said, we're not going to lose those positions, and it's not going to come out of the fund anyway. So I don't know. And you said there was 2 positions, Chief?
Yes.
And you said both wouldn't be filled until at least January? Or 1?
If they have a December academy, they start getting paid when they go to the academy. If not, the next academy would be in January.
So theoretically, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, by removing the salary of 1, not actually removing the position, but knowing we won't fill it till January, would actually save us that money in the budget without actually affecting anything.
It's not the accounting terms, but if you shuffle the shelves like that, then yes. We'll have savings in the salary lines, but we'll be chipping away at my
okay. All right. So I was just asking that, but that's fine.
I think what we're saying is the position could be added without putting extra dollars on the police budget.
Yeah, so however we word it, it won't, however we want to word it, that money won't come out until January anyway. So, I mean, we can leave it as it is, but.
So I take the consensus that majority of the council wants that position in there. Kristen, you added that? Or-
So are we adding the 60,000 or are we not?
I really think we should meet with the chief, maybe go, out to bid and see what we can get. And maybe there's some grants already out there. So I think you could almost fund this position within our budget already.
And if we were reallocating those two positions for the period of those months before those applicants go off to the academy, wouldn't there need to be some mathematical formula involved in this to figure out exactly what that amount would be? And then we would have to make up the difference if there was a difference?
So there probably wouldn't be that much difference because basically what you're saying is you're only going to have two positions that you're only going to pay for half a year. So that's really only one position. I mean, I know that's not body wise, that's not true, but dollar wise.
Going to hurt next year.
Yeah, I think it would just become an administrative task for the chief to come before council once he gets everything lined up and then say, I have these resources in my budget. Do you approve? If we're not.
And I just want to reiterate, I don't want to add this position and remove any positions from the police department, just to clarify. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Correct. So
Kristen, I think that's a good idea.
Yep, I support going ahead and Chief not adding, without adding technically a position. You're right, letting the chief come to us and say, and I think we will find quite a bit of money. I think we'll be able to come up with some money, whether it's Rhode Island Foundation, whether it's, there's got to be money out there at this point.
And again, with the state of the world, I'm hoping one of the positives that can come out of it is maybe we get some extra funding, not just for the town of West Warwick, but I think this position would be essential in every community, not just in the state, but in the entire country. I think it's definitely a valuable resource for the police department.
I'd be remiss if I just didn't say it, is that by not putting it in the budget, at least in my mind, it's not indicated as something that would be sustainable, because I'd just be looking to say, I can tweak something for fiscal 21 because I know I'm not going to have two bodies, but now I'm not set up for a plan in place or the seed money for fiscal 22 and beyond. So
yeah,
I can, I'm sure I can make something happen now, but we're not setting ourselves up to make it happen.
Yeah, so maybe my suggestion is maybe we don't mess with any of the stuff with that, because I mean it could affect us even for grants going forward, right? That it looks like we can't afford to fund this position.
Is that a question for me?
Oh no, I think it was more for the chief. I don't know if it would affect anything going forward, as far as affecting grants. I mean, if it looks like we can fund it, I don't know how that affects getting grants or getting funding, or if it helps us by having that position, if that also helps us knowing that we already have that position. So maybe other grants come forward.
I have no idea what type of the parameters of the grants that may be coming out. I know in the past, there's been requests for matches, in various formulas. Obviously people like you to have a plan in place before they give you money or commit to your project. I think we're fortunate where we have some foundation already. Obviously we can look at doing it a little differently. I have no problem with that. We'll delegate that first thing tomorrow morning to start that project off. But
Chief, what does your budget look like this year?
I think Kristen can probably give a better answer, but off the top of my head, I think we're going to be extremely close.
Look at it right now. In my monthly report, I believe it's very close. Let me pull that up.
Yeah, it was. I did look at that.
I want to say it was like 78,000 over maybe. And that's just with, you know, my projections. It could come in less than that. 2,000 monthly report.
And I do have a hand up in the audience again.
Sorry.
That right now I'm projecting 96,000 over budget. That was 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Right now, he's got about 454,000 to spend with 3 payrolls left still to hit. And then whatever other expenses are out there. The rest of the pension, the health, so I think my projection of 96 over is pretty good.
Okay.
Okay, West Warwick has?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it's Kathy again. So I just want to give a little perspective on the funding. The position that was already funded, it was funded for 3 years. And I have gone all over the state advocating for funding through the Department of Health, which is one of our funders at the Health Equity Zone, through Rhode Island Foundation. And I just want to say that, like, I want to back up what the chief is saying. I think that the key is to have a sustainable position, because that's exactly what happened. It wasn't because it wasn't doing anything for the community, that position. It was an amazing thing. It's just losing funding. So I think that that's been the concern. And, you know, I have looked into every single grant that has come through. The Providence Center actually applied for VOCA funding to try to continue to fund that position, and they were denied the funding. I know we're in a different society right now. I know things are different, but I just want you all to know, on a state level, many times West Warwick is kind of not on the map all the time when it comes to funding resources that come through. Because I also am part of the Woonsocket has, and they're offered a lot more funding than West Warwick is. So we're you know, taking a chance anytime we just kind of rely on that. So I just want to reiterate that I think that that's the whole point of why this is being brought to the council right now.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, any other comments on that?
So I guess I'm not sure where we stand.
Clear as
And
mud.
again, in an effort to keep that tax increase under 2%, is there an appetite to not fund one of the open positions that we have in town now?
I'm not sure which one. If
I mean, realistically, will we be able to fill all the DPW and parks jobs realistically?
I'm not sure.
Don is in the video, is in the participants, correct?
Yeah, he's here.
Well, I think if we're going to cut something, I mean, just to look at it, where do you cut? You cut a DPW laborer that's vacant because there's an abundance. But do we want to give DPW a shot of having the 2 crews and having us back on track and having the drainage crew and the pothole crew and the cemetery crew? I mean, it's a catch-22 with this. You know, we get all over DPW, and myself included, because they're the face of the town. And when yard waste isn't picked up or somebody hits a pothole on the London Turnpike, who do we go to? You know, we got to give, I think, Don, he's only been here 6 months. I mean, don't really know him. Just give him the opportunity to have a crew and get the job done. But if we are going to cut a position, to me, realistically, that's one of the ones we have to cut.
I would hope, Dawn Willett, I would hope that it wouldn't be a permanent cut. We need the bodies, obviously. And as you heard, we're already down 9 positions that are official. I have 2 other individuals that are retiring the end of the month. They're not working now, so they're not, they're basically using up their vacation and sick time. And I've got 2 guys on long-term workman comp, and I've got 1 guy that's borrowed to the dog pound. So, I mean, I'm absolutely strapped, but I'll be honest with you. If I got 4 positions in July 1st, I could sit for several months while we worked with those 4 individuals. And then we could turn around and take a good look in October to see if we need to fill the rest of those positions. So would I be willing to give up 1 position? The answer is yes. But I really, I mean, I can't even, the frustration level for me right now is through the roof. I need bodies, and I've needed bodies for a long, long time. So I need to get at least 4 positions immediately.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you go first, Mary Beth.
No, I was just going to say, I agree with that. And in my mind, it would not be a cut on a permanent basis. But I don't believe realistically, given the pace that we've gone at this point to fill those positions, that you will fill all those this year anyway, or in budget year 21. I don't believe you'll be able to.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. And I wouldn't imagine we would want to make that. I think it would be just for this 2020 budget. And I don't know how,
Yeah.
2021, I apologize. Yes. I don't know how we'd put it in there, but yes, just from this budget, not as a permanent cut at all. But given what you just said, Don, I don't think that you would fill all those positions.
So I guess then that I would recommend that we and thank you, Don, for being a team player. I guess I would recommend that to get that back down under 2, that we not fund one of the vacant DPW positions for 2021 only. And that gives us a year to figure out how we, and Chief Knott, my intent would be that position would be going forward, and who knows, maybe even being able to supplement it, given the way the world is these days.
Yeah. Also, be careful on the dollar amount. I don't think a DPW employee coming straight in is a $60,000 employee.
With benefits, I would say so.
I don't think that we need to take anything from DPW. I think what we can use is the budget dollars that we have as a whole. There'll be resources to cover the position if we get it.
That makes sense.
So, okay. So that
we
we're
can
not
do
at
a budget we can do a budget reallocation at the end of the year if necessary.
Okay. That would work. And then we would still be under we'd be back down at the close to the 1.92 or whatever you said.
1.92. Yep.
Yes. That works for me.
That works.
Any other comment from the council?
So I still have a couple more things.
You still have a couple more things, Kristen?
Yeah. So the total expenditure cuts now total $881,613. We also are going to propose a budget of $500,000 of our fund balance. That would basically be our surplus, part of our surplus from this year, as a revenue source and that is part of bringing it down to the 1.92%. That was part of it. So that 500,000 was negated a little bit by the loss in meals and hotel revenue. So then the net change to the budget is now $1,139,707 is coming off the current year tax budget. The other change I need to just, as a matter of housekeeping, with the schools level funding their state aid, because that's what's happening to them, I need to change those numbers in my budget to match theirs. So I just need to propose that change of 1,009,500, I think it is. 28,961,423, 27,009. 1,009,523 1952308. So we would have to reduce the state aid as a revenue source and conversely on the appropriation side.
And that just reflects the changes that you sent us earlier today that the school made when they went through and did their budget cuts. I know that they had a school committee meeting last Wednesday, last Wednesday night, I believe.
Yes, so we would just match their number. And obviously, if something changes and they get more, we send it to them, so they get it. But it's good to match. It's good to be on the same page.
Nope, that makes sense. Nope, I think that works. And I agree with Ernie's discussion about ordinarily you wouldn't use surplus unassigned funds, but these are unusual times, and I don't like the term rainy day fund, never had, but I would say we're probably more in a monsoon season at this point than a rainy day fund. So it certainly makes perfect sense to use that $500,000.
Hey, Greg.
So I think you could probably vote on the changes plus the two the list of changes that you were given with the 2 edits, and then the school change. Probably do maybe 2 votes or 1. You may be able to do 1 vote. I'll leave that up to you.
So what are the 2 edits? I'm sorry. So why is that different than the school change? What am I missing?
So the edit. So the document I gave you had 100. The school reduction, not the pension. So the swap out.
Okay. Okay. So that's what you're saying for 2.
Correct. So the document I gave you to vote on that, taking out the reduction of the school, putting in the reduction of the pension, would be that 1 vote, and then the other vote to correct the school state aid number.
So if necessary, I would make a motion to put the $154,000 back into the budget for the schools and to remove $167,000 in additional pension funding for the 2021 budget.
I second.
Along with all the other changes that were proposed.
Yes, that's correct. In addition to the changes outlined by Kristen on the document that she sent to us, I believe it was Ernie sent it to us on Thursday, the 11th of June.
And that includes the other changes we discussed, including that position.
It does. Well, again, she's going to modify the budget or reallocate budget numbers. We're not going to add anything. Kristen's going to be able to move the money around to the departments as necessary, so we don't have to actually add that $60,000.
Okay, that's fine. I second.
So
I have no video on.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Any public discussion?
Ow.
Hearing none, I'll take a roll call. Councilman Licciardi?
I'm going to vote no, and this is the reason why. I think we've had a lot of dialogue. I think we made a lot of changes, a lot of positive changes, and a lot of work was put into this. But I firmly believe that the Civic Center should contribute revenue to the town, similar to the sewer department. So I can't vote for this. So I'm going to vote no.
Councilman, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Civic Center has its own budget, so you're going to say no to our budget that we worked, that Kristen, the town.
Yes, because
department.
Dave, this provides, it's all hand in hand. That provides revenue to this budget. If it didn't, then I would vote yes. But this provides needed revenue to this budget. And that's why I'm voting no. Everything else I agree with.
The only, if I could just, so just in this, actually, we haven't voted on a Civic Center budget yet, so we wouldn't know the way it was presented originally. The way it was presented
unless that's
originally.
in there to get revenue, if that's not in there to get revenue to the town, which it won't be, then I'm going to vote no on that one too. I mean, I stand behind this. It'll pass, but It is what it is. I can't do it. I'm sorry. And it's not against anybody's effort that they put into this budget. I know a lot of work has been done for numerous hours by a lot of people. But this one spot, I can't do it.
Councilman Messier,
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson,
Yes.
Councilman D'Amico,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Any other comments?
You just do the school one.
So I would also make a motion that the budget be amended to reflect the changes made to the school budget, both the state appropriation coming in and their expenses going out.
Second.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion from the school committee or superintendent or Joe Spagna, finance director? Oh, trying to unmute you, Karen, but it won't let me.
See,
Oh, try now. There
Okay,
you go.
great. Oh, good evening, everybody. And I want to thank the town council for consideration of the school's budget and our appropriation of 800,000 that we've asked for. I appreciate all of the comments made earlier in regards to our partnership and the relationship we've been able to build with the town, between the town and the school department over the past several years. I appreciate all of the compliments to the school department and the work we've been able to do with not only the support of the school committee, but with the town council as well. Without that, we wouldn't have been able to do a lot of what we've been able to do. And I'll just say in brief again, because it's already been mentioned tonight, in the last week and a half or so, we had a very difficult school committee meeting where we cut $1.9 million out of the budget because of our expected state allocation for FY21. Not only did Joe Spagna do a great job, he dug into the overall budget with cuts across the board in just about every area. We had the most difficult decision to make to lay off 6 people and to cut 5 positions. Not an easy thing to do. We all know we're all living in really tough times right now. So to have to deliver that news to people on that night was not an easy thing to do. Since then, so at that meeting, Joe Spagna, at our most recent school committee meeting the other night, he presented the amended budget and the deficit reduction plan to get to the new budget number. Since then, as you also know, the governor made an announcement last Wednesday that the state goal will be for all schools to open in full with the goal of all students returning next year. Now, we all want all the kids back, all the teachers back, all the administrators back. The problem we're faced with now is the CDC guidance in order to do that, to achieve that goal, is significant in terms of the measures that we'll have to take. And I remember at the first budget workshop this spring, we talked about just this and what the model for next year may be and the expected anticipated additional cost into getting kids back into school, knowing that we're going to have health and safety protocols and measures in place to do just that. So that's the challenge we're faced with right now. So on top of the 1.9 million in state aid reduction, we do expect there to be an additional expense to bringing kids back to school next year. We're at the very beginning stages of thinking about this and planning for it. This Friday, we expect guidance from the Department of Health that will tell us what the requirements are and what the recommendations are, which will address local nuances. Every district is different, every community is different, which may warrant slight variances in what schools or departments need to do. So with all of that said, there's still a lot of uncertainty for next year. We're going to do our very best to bring as many kids and teachers back in a safe environment. That's what we all need. That's what kids need. That's what parents need. That's what teachers need. Because as successful as distance learning has been, and I think Councilman Licciardi mentioned it earlier, it definitely came with challenges for families who were all of a sudden homeschool teachers and, trying to do their own jobs at the same time. So on top of the 1.9 million we already cut, there could be additional costs, and we're still waiting to find out if the state is going to support that in any way. What we did find out yesterday was the CARES Act money that was intended to support going back to school next year, we're going to get, but they're going to take just that much of our state aid more away from us. So it's going to be a wash. So at this point, there has been speculation that the federal government will come through with more stimulus money for all districts and all municipalities. So we hope for that. But in the meantime, we have a very daunting task ahead of us that we'll spend most of the summer trying to figure out and wait for more money from the federal government. So that's in short where we are as a department in terms of our financing and planning for return for school next year. But I, mostly at this point, just want to thank the council for your support. We all know we've been through tough times, whether, in life or in our professional worlds, and relationships are what keep us afloat. So I'm proud of the work we've been able to do with the town and the town council in my tenure in this position, and even as when I was at the high school. So I appreciate the support tonight and look forward to continuing our positive work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi?
We're voting to give the money back and put it back into the schools, correct?
800,000.
No,
Yep. Yeah, I think-
no,
Sorry.
no. This is actually a vote to just adjust the budget to reflect the $1.9 million that the school reduced their budget by, and the offsetting reduction in state aid.
Correct. I apologize. I misspoke.
Yes, I'm for that.
Councilman Messier?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson?
Yes.
Councilman D'Amico?
Yes.
And I vote yes. And
Thank
thank
you
you again for the school committee and the school department. I know it's going to be a very tough year for everyone. I'm sure this isn't the end of budget time, even though when this budget gets voted upon and voted for, I'm sure we still have a lot of work to do as both parties this year and to make it meet at the end of the year.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. All right, that's it for budget. One quick question I do have. I know we're meeting Monday, I think it is, to vote on the budget.
Correct.
Correct. What I need to know at that point is what are we doing for the financial town meeting and then the all-day referendum?
So I emailed Danielle today at Department of Municipal Finance to lay out a plan because there's a lot that needs to happen. So Monday night, we vote to send the budget to the voters. So based on that, on the next day, I would get everything ready, disclosure, advertisement, everything ready, send it off to DMF, Department of Municipal Finance. They are now working a shared, what is that? The shared position thing where they're like kind of like laid off for 2 days.
Work share. Yeah.
Thank you. Couldn't think of that word.
No, that's okay.
So they're doing the work share. So she's off Thursday and Friday. So best case scenario, get it back the following Monday or Tuesday with their approval, get it to the paper, advertised by July 3rd would mean we could have FTM on July 14th and a voter referendum on July 16th?
Is that enough time to get the ballots?
That's a good question. You're still muted.
Can't hear
All
you.
right, no, so, yes, we need about a week to get the ballots.
I will hear back hopefully from Danielle tomorrow and I can confirm that timeline and I'll have a better answer for Monday night when we have our meeting.
I'll confirm the ballot timeframe too. It might be shorter. I'll confirm that.
And just to clarify, Monday is the only item that will be on the agenda is simply to vote yes or no for the council to approve the budget to send to the voters for the budget.
That's correct. It's a special meeting just for that. Isn't that correct? Mary Ann?
That's how
Yes.
I understood it.
Right.
All righty, do I have a motion to adjourn this?
You do.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
So Joe, we're gonna all stay on, Joe? Those of us that need to be on for the
Yep.
sewer commission and.
Everybody that's staying for the sewer commission, stay on for 1 second. I've got to make one adjustment to the
We've been
screen
doing
for
Civic
YouTube.
Center next.
Oh,
Can we
yeah,
get a 5-minute break?
We do have the Civic Center
We
budget.
have to do Civic Center before sewer, I believe.
Yep.
Okay, well, then go ahead and do the Civic Center and
Did we actually advertise the Civic Center?
We sure did.
Yeah.
okay.
Is it on? Okay.
Lori on?
Lori was on. Yes, she's here.
All right, let's the Civic Center. So did we have to adjourn that meeting?
Yes.
So
Yes.
we have to restart this meeting.
So we did adjourn that, correct?
Yes, so I just want to make sure, so now I have to start this meeting. I know Councilman Chadi said he needed 2 minutes. Does he still?
Yeah, are we taking a break for any of the meetings, or are we?
Let's
5 minutes?
Let's get through the Civic Center, then we can take a 5-minute from there.
All right.
Did we get an updated Civic Center budget? Oh, I guess I should wait. I'm sorry.
Let me know when you're ready, Joe.
You're good to go, Dave.
All right, meeting call to order. Today is Tuesday, June 16th. It is now 8:12 p.m. Town Council meeting via Zoom for the West Warwick Civic Center budget hearing. Mary Ann. Roll call.
I'm sorry. Councilman Licciardi,
Here.
Councilman Messier,
Here.
Councilwoman Williamson,
Here.
Council Vice President D'Amico,
Here.
Council President Goslin.
Here.
There is a quorum.
Okay, Lori, you want to start?
Ernie, do you want to start, or do you want me just to go with it? I don't know if you start.
I'm sorry, is that? Yeah, well, you can start, that's fine.
So we did do many, I actually came up with 13 different budgets of what if, just because we don't know what the what ifs are. I don't know, I do know what the costs are, the essential expenses are. I don't know what could possibly happen, what couldn't happen. And this COVID has a lot of restrictions, and we did open up, a week ago, probably for June, that we did not expect. We probably will have over $20,000 worth of ice sold and used and whatnot, but it is a lot of work to have them in here. I've been told that I am the strictest so far, but again, I've talked to Ernie, I've talked to Chief Barone on numerous occasions, and I would rather stay strict And when the time is right, I can loosen up the restrictions a little bit. But there are only 15 people allowed in the building, in the ice rink. And if in the field house there is a renter, they are on separate courts and they come in separate entrances. There's a contact log every day that's taking place. I mean, it's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot more work than we're used to on a normal basis. You know, again, we're trying to get the expenses to equal what the revenue is. I don't know what the restrictions are. We don't know if there's going to be high school sports. We don't know what is going to take place, but I believe with the new staffing, that will save us a lot of money. You know, I won't have staff here when there isn't rentals. I mean, basically, June so far, the staff has only been here when there is rentals, which, you know, would have made sense from the beginning. I know Kristen and I have talked about, like, where do you go with the budget? What do you do with the revenues? Like, what do you do, you know, at this point? I mean, do we pick a happy medium of what we thought it was going to be? Do we just stick with this budget that we prepared before COVID and hope that, you know, things do get better? I mean, I will tell you right off the bat, just the summer alone, I have more renters this summer than I did last year. And that is with the restrictions that I do have in place. So I just, you know, again, I don't know where you want to go. I know there's a lot of questions. And, you know, again, I think it might be because I'm a doer. I'm not a tell everybody what I'm doing kind of person. And, you know, I was thinking and I was listening, and, you know, the one thing that I do hate the most is the negativity and the assumptions of what is actually going on. And so I think that moving forward, that I on my own will come up with a report that can be given to you all so that you can know exactly where we stand every single month. I just think that makes a lot more sense. There's so much that goes on here. This is such a great place for the community. You know, I listened to the whole message before where, you know, should the Civic Center be giving back to the town some sort of monetary revenue? Maybe, maybe not. But I mean, the Civic Center gives to the schools where they have gym here and where all the teams practice here. That's not charged to the school. You know, the votes, every time that we have an all-day referendum, you know, that's revenue that we completely lose on those days. We don't rent it out. There's free town community events that take place here that the staff, you know, for the votes, for the community events, the staff is here. So should we be giving other monetary? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, it just all depends on what it was or what it could be. I mean, I will tell you that the goal for the ice rink for revenue was $454,000. Pre-COVID, when we shut down in March, the beginning of March, we were at 434. With the $20,000 that we're going to get for June, we're going to be over that number. So, and it's not to say that tomorrow I'm not going to sell 10 more hours of ice. So I believe that we were on the right track, and then COVID hit and, you know, things happened. Being closed for March and April and May, we lost $122,000 of events that were coming here, of renters that were coming here. I mean, we should have been, our number for revenue should have been about $740,000 this year. And we would have been in the black, we would have been fine. We would have, I mean, right now we're going to come very close to it. I mean, there was a lot of things that were beyond my control that, you know, I had to pay overtime. I had to, you know, have contractual people here when there was nothing here, which then in return maybe have to pay overtime or have part-timers come in. So, I mean, without the contractual schedule that tied my hands with that, I mean, I think that we're going to be much better. And, you know, again, the field house obviously isn't going to bring in the revenue that it was bringing in before, just because of the organizations. And, you know, I mean, maybe phase 3 will be different. And maybe, you know, after I talk with Ernie and I talk with Chief Verone, we'll feel the need to mix different organizations. But right now, if one organization comes in, that's the only organization in the building.
Right.
Does anyone have any questions?
So what budget are we going by?
Yeah, I guess that's the question. So I didn't get another budget, so you just
I have all of these budgets.
yeah.
So I know my numbers very, very well when it comes to the facility. You know, I work very hard on a daily basis, like whether it's an event, whether it's just an organization that's coming in. I mean, you also have to figure that in the ice rink before the locker rooms were open. The locker rooms are not open. I mean, everybody is getting dressed out in the parking lot. So in between each group.
Yeah, Lori, there's no doubt about, nobody's questioning how hard you work or don't work, quite honestly. But, you know, I can't imagine the numbers that were presented before would be the same. Am I making, maybe that's wrong.
Yes, I can tell you right off the bat, like, you know, 30,000.
Ernie, you're muted, Ernie.
Okay, this budget is going to be like the school department's budget and the town's budget. They will be revised some way, shape, or form, be amended. This budget will be amended as well. Once we get started, we'll see. And clearly, if the budget needs to be, the revenues are going to be adjusted downward, then the expenses will be adjusted downward too. So again, this is similar to the work in progress that is going to be happening with our budgets. You know, we can't, you know, the expenses that are there are the basic expenses to keep the facility open and the labor and operational costs to keep it going. So whatever budget's adopted, it is going to be revised one way or another. So if the original budget's adopted, it's balanced. We will see how it goes in the next month, 2 months, however long, and then we'll come back and make revisions. The school department will be back to make revisions. If they receive more funding, we'll increase our budget. If in fact we have to come back and adjust ours in up or down, there'll be a revision there. So again, it will be the same principle on how we do it. Clearly, it won't be as it was presented, but what budget is it going to be? So as a starting point, the budget could be what was presented, knowing that, like all the other budgets we have, it's going to change. It'll be amended, and it will be amended downward rather than upwards or possibly downwards for school and town. Other than that, I don't know what assumptions we can use that would be correct. Nothing would be correct because we have still so many unknowns.
I struggle with that a little bit, especially since the budget that we actually have presented before us has a cash reserve addition of $68,000 in it. I mean,
again, I think that that can be removed, but the principle is this budget, no matter what budget, is going to change, and whatever it changes is what it will be. You know, the revenues, as we see, will be what they're going to be, and the expenses are going to be what they're going to be. Now, if the revenues are not coming in, then the expenses will be adjusted one way or another. Because again, this is like, there is really no right answer here. This budget is going to be, see how it works. Clearly, the Civic Center is going to be way down. The expenses are going to be down. So again, at the few months, a revision will be made. Again, it's up to the council. I mean, I don't know how inaccurate or close to accurate, or really any budget, but it is very difficult, and whatever budget is going to be amended. So at that point, again, whatever the council would feel comfortable with. I mean, there are countless scenarios of budgeting using a 10-month budget, 9-month budget, and having that be the guide. And that could be amended as well. So again,
is there a pressing need to actually approve this budget at this point in time? It does not go before the voters.
Yes, because we have to set our budget in place for the expenses, the revenues. The staffing has to be looked at, and the model calls for two positions and a part-time secretary. Again, a part-time secretary can wait. That's no big deal. Not important at the present time, but there needs to be another person there to work on the Zambonis, work on the other things. Now, maybe that could be deferred a bit, but again, so no, a budget has to be in place to operate by July 1st. You know, expenses are going to have to be charged to something.
Remember, this budget is just a guide. The Civic Center we're not assessing a tax rate on anybody. This is a guide for hopes that how the Civic Center is going to operate under normal conditions, but we don't know what those conditions are going to be. So at this point, like Ernie said, it can be tweaked going forward once the unknowns become known. But it's really just a guide. The meat and potatoes of the Civic Center are the actuals, are the revenues, are the expenditures, are how it shakes out at the end of the year. Did we provide the services to the community? That's the bottom line for the Civic Center as a whole. We're not going to be taxing somebody more.
No, I understand that. Again, I completely understand that. I just, to think that the same budget that was presented 2 months ago would be what we would approve now just doesn't seem exactly right to me, to be honest with you. I understand it will be tweaked going forward. I get that. And I know Lori will be watching the expenses and not spending the money just because it's there in the budget. That's I understand that, especially if the revenues aren't coming in.
Worry is that I need that full-time position filled. So in order to get that full-time position filled and put out and whatnot, we need to approve a budget. I'm good, but I think my family would like to see me every once in a while come home.
Any other comment from the council? I think if we, so Lauren, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
If we approved a budget level funded, meaning when I say level funded, your expenditures are going to equal your revenues. Is it safe to say that your budget will be at zero for the year?
Well, that's the goal and that's what I'm hoping to do. But again, say a second wave hits, like, you know what I mean? Say there's no high school sports, say there's no high school hockey. You know, I mean, do I think that the leagues will continue to do their skills practices as they are? Yeah, I do think I would be able to sell that ice, but I also wouldn't be getting the door revenue from the high school hockey games. So, I mean, there's just so many variables that all are just waiting on basically a vaccine.
There could be a resurgence of the coronavirus. The cases could go higher. The phasing may, there may be, let's see, there's another shelter at home or stay at home. I mean, you know, nationwide, you see the increases of the testing positive occurring. Could there be a time where, you know, we're going to fall under more severe restrictions? Possibly. Hope not, but possibly. So again, that's going to affect how we would run the Civic Center and the expenses and revenues. So again, this is like really pretty much, other than what the minimum expenses are, shot in the dark at this time based upon issues that we can't control.
We could also take, if you're uncomfortable with that cash reserve fund amount in the expense, to be conservative, we could take that out and reduce some of the revenues that we know we're probably not going to collect if the numbers don't increase, where, you know, we're not getting the office rentals. Summer program is canceled. I mean, that would pare it down a bit to maybe make it a little bit more realistic.
And I think that not doing that, just putting something out there that, that's what I'm uncomfortable with. We know that we know that the camp's not gonna happen. We, you know, you just said the office rentals aren't gonna happen, so.
We could take 30,000 off because this year didn't happen. Leave the other 30,000 in for the camp rentals because next year, my fingers are crossed and I'm very optimistic that we will have summer camp again and it'll be 1,000 times better than it ever was.
That's exactly what in my little spreadsheet, as I'm plugging numbers in here, that's exactly what I did.
So could we do this then? Could you actually, could we table this for tonight and make this a very quick second vote on the 22nd? You giving us a reduced or skinny down budget to look at before that.
Do we have to advertise that again?
I would say yes. Well, is it a public hearing is the question.
Or is it just be an adjustment?
You would be completing a public hearing and then voting on the same night.
I don't think she'd have time to advertise. Would you have time to advertise?
Mary Ann, do you have to advertise?
Try.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would have to advertise.
So you'd have to advertise it again. So you would recess this hearing in order to continue at a later date, but then also have your vote on the same date.
Well, I was thinking the 22nd, which is next Monday. Is that time enough?
I mean, I can try and email her.
No, I meant, I'm actually timing for advertising is what I was asking Mary Ann.
I'm not sure. Lori would have to discuss it, whether it depends if they're like full for a certain day or things like that, they don't have space. So she can probably get it in within a day or two. How much time, Lori, do you need between the date of advertising and the meeting?
Thought it has to advertise at least 3 days before.
3, that's what I thought. Okay, so if she could get in Thursday, Friday, that's cutting it. She got it in Thursday, we'll go to Monday.
I mean, do you have the budgets in front of, we could propose the changes tonight and I could give you the new bottom line number and we could vote on it tonight. Just, it's a few changes.
I think you'd want to see the changes for deliberation purposes only and then vote, not stop your deliberations now, get the documents after the fact and then vote. Doesn't seem that transparent because you don't know what you're really voting on, and neither does the public because it's not going to be subject to a hearing.
Ernie, you were going to say something?
Yeah. We have a public hearing tonight for a budget. So the public has, for a public hearing on a budget, they have a right to comment on the budget. Why cannot the council finish the public hearing and then take a vote on Monday, take the budget that's presented? We have a amended budget that could be adopted. Why is it required to have another public hearing after you've already had them?
So only if you recess tonight. If you don't recess and you finish the hearing, you can take your vote on Monday.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, the suggestion was if you recess the meeting tonight in order to get a different budget, you're recessing your hearing, which means you have to continue your hearing and then adjourn that hearing to have your vote. That's where the advertising comes in. That's only if you recess tonight's hearing.
No, I wouldn't say we recess tonight at all. I would disagree with that. I would say, and I don't necessarily object to, as we just went through the town budget and did the same thing. I don't object to, I'd like to hear from the rest of the council what Kristen suggested. So we know that, I don't know what line the summer camp's in. I assume it's in the field house rental, but I'm not sure of that.
So revenue, summer camp revenues are a separate line of their own. Summer program.
Oh, yes, they are. Okay. So you want to leave, you want to do,
so I was going to
take
reduce
30 out of that?
Yep, I was going to reduce that to 30. I was going to take out the vending machine revenue, bring that down to 0. I was going to take the office rentals out for now. And remember, if any of this changes, they're just all for the better.
Absolutely.
And the field house, I was gonna adjust that down because that's being a little bit more affected than the ice rink. That was basically my plug, the $13,608.65. Reduce the field house from 120 to 106,391.35. And then take out on the expense side, the cash reserve fund of 68,008.65. And that would leave us with a budget of expenditures totaling $616,584 and corresponding revenues totaling $616,584.
But wouldn't the summer program wages come out too?
Well, most of the wages, I mean, we could take the wages out.
Or at least half of them. And I would say more than half because, excuse me, you're talking about having summer camp next June, which would be for 1 month. And
So for
half of June,
every,
really,
most of the summer camp would be in the fiscal year 22. So for every expenditure that you decrease, you have to decrease a revenue. So if you want to decrease the summer program rate wages by 14,000, then you would need to decrease one of the revenues by that amount. So advertising income or the field house by more.
I don't think it'd be unreasonable to have the field house be reduced by more, would it?
No. Probably not. Now we are looking at.
You also have, expense trip summer program in there. So I guess that, yeah. In the
That's summer
expense
program
line.
wages.
Yep. So you're gonna reduce those by 14, but you also have another expense called expense trip summer program.
Oh, that's not on the next, okay, I see that, yep.
So we could.
15.5. I'll defer to Lori on that.
You could probably take that down and leave about 2,500 in there because it would only be like a week or two of summer camp. So I would just keep the trips and the places that we go to under that budget for the first week or two.
So take out 16,000 and leave 2,500.
Yeah.
Okay, that brings expenditures down to 5. Oh, wait a minute. I'm carrying them all over. This is what happens when you try to go too fast. 586, 583, 35. And then, so I'm gonna have to take some more off the revenue. So we have, I need to take another 16,000 off. I don't know if we want to hit field house again, or do you want to do?
Yeah, I would do field house.
Just field house.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Only because I feel that I think we'll still strive in the same way that it did last year. I mean, even with the 15 people, I mean, I have a really, really great schedule for the summer, and people are already booking their times for the fall and winter. So
so we are at 500 expenditures totaling 586,583.35 and corresponding revenues totaling $586,583.35.
And that's down and dirty. To do it right, you'd actually change the taxes and the medical and the dental and everything else that went along with it.
Well, probably not the medical and dental because it's not full-time people. It would just be the taxes.
Okay. Okay. I feel more comfortable with that. Yeah, I agree with you, Ernie. We will be back at it again, but to say that we went in with the same budget and again, I think there would be some hard discussions that we'll have to have if we don't get gatherings up sometime soon, or if there is a resurgence.
I think moving forward, as I said in the beginning, that I'm going to send you all a monthly update just so that you, and I'm really detailed, so I'll just put everything in there just so we can all stay on the same page and there's, everyone just knows. I just think that'll be so much better. I mean, again, as I said in the last meeting, one of the compressors had broken one day and then another day, another compressor broke. I mean, I read the town insurance policy. I'm sure there's not many people that can say they read the town insurance policy. And I found a rider which paid for the entire thing. And I had to research it. And, I mean, that's $70,000 piece of equipment. I mean, so I just think that maybe moving forward, a lot does go on here that a lot of people don't see or hear about or whatever it is, that if I could just keep everybody on the same page, that we'll never have this assumption or, everybody will just know what goes on. And I think that just makes it better. And it makes it better for the community too, because then, your constituents ask you, you can say, they have, a hockey league, they have a soccer league, they have games, they have this, they have a craft fair, they have whatever they have.
So I agree with you. Transparency and communication are very key. There's no doubt about that. So.
I just want to say I agree. I think that certainly would be helpful.
Any other comment from the council?
Can we take a vote just to approve the changes made?
I need a motion.
So I will make a motion that we approve a budget for the Civic Center, full well knowing it will change, that has revenue and expenses. It's a balanced budget of $586,583.35.
Correct.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any public discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Councilman Licciardi?
No.
Councilman Messier?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williamson?
Yes.
Councilman D'Amico?
Reluctant, yes.
Yeah, I'll go with reluctant yes if that's an option.
And I'll vote yes.
I didn't know we had different versions.
Well,
Is this going to be on the 22nd agenda?
doesn't need to be. We
Okay,
just voted
wanted
on
to
it.
make sure. All right,
Yep.
thank you. Okay, very
That
good.
being said, do I get a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We'll take a 5-minute recess. I'll be right back.
But nobody hangs up, right?
Nope, we stay right on.
No, everybody stays right here.